Hi everyone, my name is Christine Chappell and I work at the Peel Field Centers. Today I'd like to share an activity with you called nature journaling. Nature journaling is a way of recording the things that we observe in nature. It's a way for us to slow down, for us to be curious and ask questions, and to really make great observations of the natural things around us while using all of our senses. So I'm going to show you a fun activity to do so that we can all learn how to nature journal. This is something you can do at home, you can do this at school, you can do this if you're out on a walk, sitting by a window. Nature journaling can be done anywhere. So all you need is a piece of paper, a pencil, and something natural to draw. And that can be something like a pine cone that you find outside, or it can be a vegetable from your fridge, or a fruit, or even a leaf from a houseplant. So let's get started. Okay, everybody, now that you have your object, today I'm going to focus on a potato, we can begin with the next steps of nature journaling. Nature journaling is something that has been done for hundreds of years by scientists and artists and people who just have an interest in and are curious about the natural world around them. There are no real rules when you are journaling. Really, it's just a way for you to take the information and questions and observations you have from your head onto a piece of paper, so you can really start to make some connections. You might like to use pictures, you might like to use words, you might like to use numbers. All of these things are used when journaling. But how you put the information down on your page is really up to you. So let's begin with our first step. So the first thing we always put on our page when we are journaling is the date. So this is just data that's good to have so that you can go back to after when you are looking through your journal. So you might see things that are occurring now that you hadn't noticed before, or you might be able to document changes over time. So it's always a great idea to have the date. I also like to put information about the weather. So today it's very cloudy, and you can do this however you like. If you want to use symbols, if you want to use words, you can do both. I usually like to put the temperature as well. And I always like to make note of where I am. So from the Jack Smythe Field Center in Terracotta, and how I'm feeling on any particular day, because that can sometimes affect how you're drawing or how you observe things as well. Today, I'm feeling great. I'm feeling happy, and I'm feeling curious, as always. Okay, so I like to put my information here in the top corner, but you can put yours wherever you like, and you can arrange it however you want to. Right, once you have recorded that general information, I always like to put a title. This just, again, reminds you of what it was that you were looking at. So today, I am looking at a potato. Again, you can use whatever kind of letters you want. Do not worry about spelling or how it looks. That is not what's important when we're journaling. We just want those things, as I said, to go from your brain onto your page so that you can record that info. So a good starting point when we are journaling is using a statement that is, I notice. And we begin by looking at our object and using our senses to make all sorts of different observations. So looking at my potato, there are some things that I really notice. I notice that it's very smooth. I notice that it has these dots that look like freckles on it. I noticed that it has these other spots that look like sprouts. And those, I believe that's what we call, those are eyes of potatoes. I noticed that the color is, it's got a green tinge to it, but is yellow also. I noticed that it can fit into the palm of my hand, and I can almost close my fist around it. So that's a great way to measure it. Now, you might also like to actually measure it using a ruler that you have handy, or another object. You can use non-standard units to see how long. Well, it's about half of my pointer finger in length from the bottom. And yeah, I can just about put my fingers in a ring around it, not quite. So I'd like you to draw your picture first. So you're going to draw your object. So say you put you here, I draw my potato, and then you can begin your I notice statements by making like the word. So you can actually put I notice, and then start making observations. You can do it in point form, you can do it in sentence form. You can use words and icons instead. So I often like to draw pictures, so I'll use eyes to represent I notice. Sometimes I'll do both. So I would like you first to draw your object. And when you're drawing it, everybody, do not worry about making a beautiful drawing. That's not what this is about. This is about just getting information onto your page. Okay, so look at the shape of it. Do the best you can as far as putting things that you notice about it, that are on it. You can make, when you're making these statements, the I notice statements, you might like to draw arrows to something that you're referring to over here. There's no rules when it comes to doing this, to getting your noticings, your observations down onto your paper. Okay, so begin with first just making those observations, and now draw it. Draw in as much detail as you can, and then start to get down those observations. Now I'd like to show you what I've done so far with my potato. And again, this is going to be different for everybody. You can record however you like. You can put the information wherever you like it. I like putting dots to show that I'm making another point. Some might do dashes. You might just do a single word. You might do a drawing. So rather than I said eyes that have little raised spots inside, you could even do a close-up drawing. So I might draw a line from there going up here, and then doing a close-up of the inside of that by looking at my potato and drawing. It looks like it has, it's funny, it's almost like little spots like that. So I could do a close-up. So again, this is however you want to arrange it. So once you've made your observations, and remember, you can always add to your observations as well. I went back and looked at this after, and I thought, I wonder how big it actually is. So I went back and actually measured it. I also chose to trace my potato. So my one drawing here, I just did by observing it, and that's a side view. But this one, I decided I'm going to actually draw the actual size because it fits on my paper. The next step is things that questions that you have. And we use, for this, we use the statement, I wonder. And again, I'm using words here, but you can use other things. I also like to use, you could use like a giant question mark. Anything that says to you, this is what I'm wondering about. And now you can start to jot down questions as well. Anything goes. There are there's no reason that you do not write something down. Okay, it doesn't matter if you don't have an answer. That's not what this is about. It isn't about you having to have a correct answer. This is really just about you being curious, questioning, observing. So take a moment and get down some of your wonderings. All right, well, I hope you've really taken some time to think about what it is that you are observing and jotted down lots of questions. I'll give you an example of some that I've written down. Why are all the brown spots don't look like they're going to sprout? Why is there green on it? Why did it stay this size? Did it get bigger? Will it get bigger? Do all potatoes have eyes? Why do potatoes grow underground? Do potatoes have seeds? Will all the brown spots sprout? And if not, why? So just throw out all those ideas that are in your mind, all those questions. Don't be concerned about not having the answer. Those answers may eventually come, or they may not. Or somehow you may make another connection with something else down the road. That's the idea. Okay, our last step, our final statement, is this reminds me of. And again, it doesn't have to be words. You can draw pictures, and you don't even have to write "this reminds me of." Maybe you want to use like a thought bubble or something like that as a symbol that you're going to write these things down. And so again, draw pictures of what your object reminds you of. Use words, use numbers, whatever you like to do that. So here are things I've jotted down that my potato reminds me of. It reminds me of beans and potatoes for dinner, which is something that growing up we would always have. It was one of my favorite vegetables to eat. It reminds me of a rock from the beach because it's so smooth. When I touch it, it looks very rounded. There's no sharp or jagged edges on it. It reminds me of the Britannia Schoolhouse Garden because that's another place where I work. I don't just work at Jack Smythe. I work also at the Britannia Schoolhouse and another place called the Finlayson Field Center. And at the Britannia Schoolhouse, we have a garden every summer and we plant potatoes. And it's hard work planting the potatoes, but it sure is worth it at the end when in the fall time, students come and visit us there and they help us dig out the potatoes and they take potatoes home with them back to school. And we'll often make soup. It reminds me of summertime. And the spots on it remind me of star constellations. You see how the freckles have a pattern? And it reminded me of stars in the sky. Now, that's not the end of my journaling necessarily with my potato. You might think, oh, I'm done. You might write down 2 things and think, I can't think of anything more. Try to get past that and challenge yourself to make more observations. What else do you notice? What other questions do you have? You might find that you start working on something, your I wonders, and then you go back and you notice something else that you can jot down. Or when you say this reminds me of, you might then think, oh, that brings me to another question. That's good. That's completely fine that you do that. And you might start making, drawing arrows from one thing to another. Really, your reminds me of really is about making connections with all these things. And that's what we want to do, is to make these great connections when we are observing these things in nature. So this just gives you an example of how I did this. It's an example. Your paper could look very different. Remember that. But nature journaling really is about being curious, looking at the world around you, and just picking up a piece of paper and a pencil or your journal and just drawing. And sometimes people say, I'm not a good drawer. It doesn't matter. And drawing is one of those things that the more you do, the better you get at it. It's true. So keep at it. Don't give up. Don't get frustrated. Really have fun with this. This is something I do when I go out on walks. I always have a piece of paper and pencil tucked in my bag with me, and I might sit for a few moments of quiet time and just make some observations around me. It might be something really up close, like a flower. It might be a picture of the area where I'm sitting. It can be anything, which is what makes nature journaling so great. Now that you've completed your first nature journaling activity, you might like to share with your classmates. Nature journaling is a way for us to be mindful, to slow down, to be curious, to jot down our observations and notice things that we might not otherwise have noticed. I hope this is something that you continue on your own, everyone. This isn't something that you just have to do in school. You can take this on yourself and be a nature journaler. We're going to see each other again. We're going to have a virtual field trip, and I'm going to be speaking to you from the field centers. We'll do some nature journaling together at that time, and it will be a great way for you to continue using the skills that you've learned today. So I encourage you to practice. I encourage you to keep doing this. Sit by a window, go to your fridge and see what other interesting fruits or vegetables might be there. Draw your cat or dog. Just keep being curious and getting those observations down. And I look forward to seeing you all really soon. Bye for now.